All right, welcome to Role Play Cafe. This is Candid Conversations podcast with Scott Welker. We're going to talk a little bit about some eye-opening observations Scott's made. This will also be dual published. I believe, Scott, you're going to upload maybe this to your YouTube channel, maybe, depending on what's going on? Okay.
Yeah, I'll put it on the channel and then see if the guys want to rip the audio or whatnot. And
you got
put it under the role playing as smart people.
Yeah, because Scott can be found with the podcast there with Santa. In role playing is Rich. Role playing with smart people, which is fantastic. And then of course your YouTube channel will be changing your name, but is currently Savage World Cheerleader. Is that correct?
Savage Cheerleader. Yeah,
Savage Cheerleader.
It's not what everyone thinks. It's just I got to make a little bit of a shift to go to more to the brand, and since I don't do as much, like skating commentary like we used to,
right?
It's totally safe to have that association.
So Scott and I go way back to I wasn't in the brigade. I never considered myself part of the brigade.
You were in the brigade,
but I was in the brigade, right? Just by sheer existing on the YouTube community, I was in the brigade, whether I liked it or not, right? Yeah. So Scott and I go way back. We both are pretty outspoken, pretty opinionated. We could be aggressive. We were going to be heard. But we've also loved this hobby, and we learn, and we are introspective, and we are thoughtful, and we are aware, and we are conscious, and we are always looking to make this, I think, a better experience for ourselves and for the people we share this with. Maybe I shouldn't be speaking for you, Scott, but I get the feeling you're much like me that way.
100%.
Scott has also written his OSR, right? OSR, right?
Yeah, it's up there somewhere.
Yeah, he's got the Task Force Raven as well, and you said the new Neon Blood, which is your cyberpunk-esque genre.
OSR. Yeah.
Okay. And so he is pretty much achieved. Well, he's achieved everything Dell and I are trying to just get off the ground here. We got one book we're still trying to get finished. But so there is much respect here for Scott and his crew and what he's done. So they have a great Discord channel. They invited me into that Discord channel a couple of weeks ago, and I love it because it's where we converse, we dialogue, we question, we answer, we throw punches, we dodge them adroitly, but it's good, healthy conversation, right, about our hobby. What's great is Scott shares that he's reading the DMG for 5th edition, and he's a little bit wowed. And I had to respond that when I read the 5th edition D&D 5th edition DMG years ago, I went, holy shit, this is maybe the best book they've ever written. I unfortunately can't recall much of that, but Scott this morning also shared some actual quotes from the book and made a couple of revelations, and I'm intrigued to hear where you're at and what's going on there. So, without further ado, Scott, tell me, first of all, how did you get the DMG into your hands and start reading it? What was the goal for why you were even looking at the DMG?
So you know what? That's the weird part of I honestly don't remember what came up to be like, hey, I want to read let me see what the DMG says, and it may have been a lot of people just kind of crap on the DMG in general, and like the DMG 2 for 4th edition is probably hands down the best advice book on running games. It really is. Mm-hmm. The 4th edition in general is just it's so woefully misunderstood. But for this one, I honestly don't remember what it was. I mean, I think I just got to thinking like, okay, playing D&D and I do listen to a lot of 5th edition stuff. There's a campaign setting that I want to like listen to, like Curse of Strahd or Yawning Portal stuff. I'm like, I'm going to listen to it. But yeah, I was like, well, let me see what the DMG actually says about the game. Because we have this conversation about the conceit of a game, and is that communicated clearly? And I'm like, well, okay, yeah. There's just the DMG is going to be like, oh, here's how you make CR ratings, and here's how you make encounters in dungeons. And then I opened it up, and I was like, well, let me see. I pulled it on my iPad because I own the DMG on the iPad. Right. I also own the physical books. I have the original books. If you're listening, you understand what I mean by the original 5th edition set. Right. The unedited credit set.
Yeah.
The three people's names are still in there because it's bullshit to do that to someone.
Right.
They help make you bazillions of dollars. And
then you cut them out.
Yes, that's bullshit, and that's fucking low.
Yeah, it
Sorry,
is.
I didn't mean to swear. We'll beat that.
No, you can swear. Go right ahead.
Okay, so but like yeah, I started reading it, and I was like, at first I'm like, oh, first few pages, I'm like, whatever. Yeah, okay, this is what gaming is, and then I hit the chapter one is like the world of your own, and I'm like, okay, and I was like core assumptions. Well, hold on,
Right.
what the hell is core assumptions?
Right.
And then I read I was like, okay, they're okay, and those are the two that I put in the Discord that really got this moving, because I think everyone's really shocked, because I'm really known as like being very vehemently anti 5th edition.
Yeah.
And then like today when I said like 40 years of gaming, probably longer. Mm-hmm. I've ran 5th edition since it came out, but I can be transparently honest and account to myself, is like, I've never actually run 5th edition based on what I've read.
Right.
And I will say this,
Right.
I'm telling you that 99% of people who play 5th edition have also never ran nor played the game as
Bingo.
intended.
Bingo. Yeah.
It's just eye-opening because there's so many things. So like the big one was as much of the world is untamed. I'm like, oh my god, it's the Points of Light campaign. They continued that.
Yeah.
Like it's right there and it tells you that. It's stories about other places, but you don't know shit
right.
about anything outside your village.
Yep.
There aren't big giant towns and cities.
Yep.
It's not the Forgotten Realms. That's a superfluous setting.
Yep.
But the core assumption is, hey man, it's a Point of Light campaign.
Yep.
You live in your little village in your towns,
Yep.
and everything else is fucking horrific.
Yep.
And they're gonna kill you. And the other big one is the world is magical. And I was like, okay, well no shit, it's 5th edition.
Yeah.
But it doesn't actually say what the title says.
Right.
Because it says practitioners of magic are relatively few in number.
Bingo.
And they leave evidence of their craft everywhere.
Yep.
And then you go into it and it's just like, hey man, you might have people know magic exists, so they're
Yeah.
not like burn the witch. But,
Right.
but reading that is like most people probably have never seen a real wizard.
That's right.
And
That's
again,
right.
I'm like, oh my god, they're continuing a very OSR feel to things.
Yes, they are. Well, they were trying, and I honestly believe the original 5th edition was trying to get back to its roots.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. So that's where this all started. I'm going to keep looking down at the iPad and the book because it's
Oh no,
just,
you
there's
go right
so
ahead.
much.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You can stop me if you want to. And it does cover the section like, well, you can make it your own, and here's how you start. Because it's obvious you're going to do that. But even Forbidden Land.
You know, I don't know
most
if it
people-
is. That's one of those things that
Oh, that's fair.
I got to say this. 90% of the people I deal with in our hobby play pre-written material. So
that's true, yeah.
When when somebody invites me to a D&D table, guess what? They're going to be running something pre-written. Curse Lestrade, Yawning Portal, the Dragon Queen, or whatever the heck that's called.
Yeah.
Which means they're not using that idea from the DMG, right?
Yeah,
They're
that's
actually
interesting.
using what's already going to bring a certain conceit. So I think a lot of people are they running a module. All right, we're going to run a module, and we're going to go with what the module says, ignoring what the DMG says. So you meet a guy like me who never runs pre-written material and never did as a kid. I literally would tear out the guts and use the maps because I was like, hey, cool, the maps inspired me, but I didn't give a shit about what they said was in the maps.
Right, yeah.
I
Because the
put
maps
stuff.
are just fun.
Yeah. So I did run Points of Light. You guys are from this little village, and you don't know what's going on beyond your borders, which is Forbidden Lands does brilliantly, right? There's a conceit there with that you really don't know what's going on out there. Go find out. So I don't know if a lot of people even think about Dungeons and Dragons as original. I don't think they think about D&D as a world you can start. And I refer to these terms open box, sandbox. They're really it's meaning you start in a particular place, but we don't know beyond that much more. And I always refer to D&D as low magic, and I've had people tell me that's bullshit. It's not low magic. Well, it's supposed to be. The monsters and the things you run into out there in the wider world, that's where you discover, oh shit, there's dangerous stuff out here that has abilities we don't.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it says in here about the world of magic. It specifically calls it out.
Yep.
It says, beyond the realms of civilization are caches of magic items guarded by magic traps, as well as magically constructed dungeons inhabited by monsters created by magic, cursed by magic, or endowed with magical abilities.
Yep.
It's very clear in like when you're looking at the player's handbook, if you're not marrying that to what this book is telling you to do, because I will say this, the further as we get more into like the oh shit moments I'm having. The pre-written modules also completely fucking failed to address the DMG. It's insane. Yeah, there's a few places I was like, they've never put that into a goddamn module ever. Nope. And it's unfortunate because I'm like, well, it's right here in the book.
And I think it's unfortunate that the DMG players, again, I'm going to say this, it's a generalization, but I find it's true when I meet people. Players buy the player's handbook, they never read the DMG, so the players don't have a clue what this means. Right, they're reading about halflings and where the halfling culture comes from, and they're reading that they can be a wizard with all these amazing abilities, but they don't realize that they might be the only wizard in the party, and they may be the only wizard they ever meet on the trail, right? They may run into remnants of wizards that left behind caches and towers of traps, but they may be the only wizard that they run into in their entire campaigns, right?
Yeah, 100%. And like I said, it clearly spells it out, and it does say, "Hey, make it your own," and that's a different thing. But I'm like, if you're initially looking at this and you're sitting down and you're like, "I'm going to play 5th edition," kind of like, the thing you always talked about that I remember the most fondly is like rules as written.
Yeah.
Right. What does this say? Because that's the intent and the conceit. But man, like. The book doesn't fucking say you're shaking. The fucking bartender is not a wizard in 5th edition. It's not. Right. This it made Forgotten Realms 100%. Right. All your retired 18th level characters are doing dick all to go kill the rats in their own cellars.
Right.
Right.
That's right.
But by this, it's just crazy. And then from that point on, I realized like, oh man, I might be in trouble, like intellectually.
Right.
Just with this book, because I'm like, oh my God, I've never actually sat down and went word for word through this and made a concerted effort to see what it actually says.
Yeah. And I don't know if we do. There's so many games out there, and we've all tried and written and read so many, and you've written a shit ton that aren't yet published, even, right? So you got some stuff coming that ain't yet published. Yeah. So of course you haven't read all this shit, right?
Yeah, and I really don't. And I was like, I'm never. I usually used to play I used to play 5th edition just as like, I was like the ultimate catfish dungeon master.
Yeah,
like because I run games really well. So like, let's play some D&D. Sure, we'll play this about 5-6 sessions. Be like, man, in Savage World, your characters do this, for instance, and then they're like, wait, it makes people curious, and I feel bad about that. But I was playing D&D the way I played 5th edition the way I played 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st. I had preconceived notions about how the game worked and what the game brought to the table. And it's like, there's things in here that people will be like, that's optional rules. Mm-hmm. I was like, no, some of this isn't an optional rule. Some of this is a core conceit, and you have missed this woefully.
Yes.
And some of the things that are optional are things that would behoove you to address. Right. Because it would make your game better.
Oh, man.
Hands down.
And what I remember the most about the DMG is they defined what the fuck Dungeons & Dragons is, which should be in the player's fucking handbook. The players should be reading this too. Because when they make their halfling and when they put their party together, they understand some of those core conceits as to where they're coming from and how much of the world do they really know. And so now, with that said, then their contradictions arise. So contradiction 1, core conceits. You live in this little village, you don't know much about the world outside you, but I have a skill that says history, religion.
Right, yeah.
Right? So as a DM, I'm saying, well, that's great. That's not all history and religion, cowboy. That's the village you're from, dumb fuck.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Welcome to difficulty challenge.
Right. So now when you get out in the real world, you get out beyond your village and you say, dude, I want to use my history and religion. I say, yeah, go ahead and use that. But here's the thing. You're only going to be able to tie it to what your character actually understands about history and religion. Now the mystery is partially solved with a skill check. Not all things are known.
Yeah, absolutely. And
but players don't believe that. They think, hey, dude, I got history and religion. I expect to get the answers if I make that roll. No, you get answers relative to your character's knowledge.
Absolutely, and that is discussed of like, hey, everything is relative to stuff like that. And I think a lot of places where and I will say we, because I see this in everything I've ever heard, watched, and read on gaming, especially 5th edition and other D&D, is let's see, there's a difficulty check number that is given out, but even in the DMG, they address that is not the best way of doing it. The best way of doing it is to, you want to understand about what this religion is. It's something you never encountered before. Why don't you roll a wisdom check with religion as its focus, in case you're proficient. What do you get? And then, a 5, a 10, a 15, a 20, 25. You tell me what you got, and I will fucking begin providing levels of detail to you, which is how I do run the game that way,
Right.
but not because I read it in the DMG, because that's how I was trained by Savage Worlds, is that
Right.
the better you do,
Yeah.
the more information
Yeah.
you get. But
Yeah,
that is
Savage
it.
World says these are levels of success, really.
Yeah.
D&D, it's always been a misunderstood pass-fail.
Right, but but the only edition that does this is the one that everyone hates, which is fourth edition.
Yes, yeah.
And everything written in fourth edition is broken down in these DC checks of like, what'd you roll? Well, here's what you know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how did the fuck did they go from that to removing all of that? Because that is so even with monsters,
It is genius.
it's your monster lore.
Yeah.
It's like roll a cult.
Yeah. Oh, dude, and the fourth edition skill, I will call them tasks. Let's call them task checks. That's genius. You know,
challenges?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, skill challenge. You've got to get 3 out of 5 right? You got to get 3 right before you fail 3, right? Those genius.
Fucking perfect. And people shit on it so much, and I'm like, you are myopically dumb. I don't understand why you don't like this. We're like, why do I want to roll all the time? But it's drama, it's tension.
Yeah.
But you know,
well, you don't roll all the time. You role play. You role play. You do shit, and then a roll is required now, right?
Yes, and they specifically call that out in this fucking book. And when I read that part today, I think it was today I read that. I was like, I'm done. Yeah.
Role play, and mechanics are going to show up. But if you're going to treat it like, hey, dude, roll. Well, first of all, I don't want to be at your table. That's boring as fuck. Right? You're going to roll 6 times. Let's hope you get 3 right before you fail 3. No, you're going to role play. We're going to put it in context, and then I'm going to ask you to make another one of those checks. Right?
Yep. Yeah, and it's just some of these checks are crazy. But I don't know. It kind of descended from there. Like everyone. So even like I'll just. If you want to walk through this in like the order of their book of like,
do it.
So Renown is very early on in the book, page 22. And it is optional rule, but it's like, it's the optional rule everyone thinks they're doing in their game. We're like, oh, the guild likes you. The warrior guild hates you. Like, put the fucking numbers to it.
Yeah.
Because those numbers can change things. If your renowned builds, it really can help solidify. Well, it's a lot to keep track of. No, it's not, man. You get fucking no cards and do it. And it's like, the renown is exactly what everyone's looking for. And then you start splitting it up and then they have piety as a list of like, hey, which is one of those ones where it's like, oh my God, why didn't I read this fucking before? Because it addresses the issues of like, well, my cleric refuses to do this, or my paladin is going to go ahead and torture the fucking orc, or I'm going to look the other way so you can do it. No, bitch, that's piety. And you know what? You're losing piety.
That's bingo.
And so now
right. That's
right. It's like you can, and it's not just a total mechanical thing, but I'm like, well, this is already addressed in this game.
Right.
Like all the things that people bitch about, all these YouTube videos, I'm like, well, there's renown and piety. They've already addressed your complaints.
Bingo.
I'm not really sure your 100,000 fucking YouTube channel subscribers have ever read the fucking book,
or they don't know how to apply it, or they don't know how to. And again, I don't want to insult everybody. It's many do, and some just ignore it. Some don't think it's valuable, right? But if you take this as a whole. And this is why I said, don't cherry pick the books you read. Read them as an entire whole. Experience them as an whole, then decide whether something is wrong or broken.
Yep.
Right?
Because I will say what I did. I know what I did when it first came out is I went right to optional rules, right to optional races for the Eladrin and the Aasimar.
Okay.
And I played D&D for 40 years. I don't need this book.
Yeah.
And it was like, and I even talked to on the Discord channel people who've read the book, and even they're like, "Whoa."
Yeah.
You know, it's like I didn't realize. I think I forgot that was in there. It was like, well, we may have forgotten, or we may just didn't actually read it.
That's right.
You know,
which
is fair. In the next section is talk about magic in your world, and it actually addresses all of this. And it's like what normal folk know of magic depends on where they live.
Yep.
Right. Citizens of isolated hamlet might not have seen true magic used for generations. Right. And someone comes into town, it's like, oh, okay. So I'm like, fuck, man. And then they talk with us about Forgotten Realms and all the other worlds. But I'm like, to me, once you start discussing specific settings, we're no longer in the realm of core concepts anymore.
That's right. Well, now, once we say Greyhawk, we are all choosing Gary Gygax's Greyhawk and everything that entails. Forget what's in the DMG. The DMG's rules will support Gygax Greyhawk, but we're looking at Greyhawk and its conceits. We don't give a shit about the DMG, about what it says about magic. We're looking at what Greyhawk says about magic. So, again, when you're playing stuff that you buy, modules, world settings, those books should be telling the GM what magic means here in the Curse of Lestrade, right?
Yeah.
and therefore the DMG might be overruled, right? I mean, one of the rules in the players, I only own the basic D&D free basic PDF for 5th edition.
Yeah.
But one of the first things it says in there is, or actually it's a 4th edition, I can't remember which one now, that says specific beats general. Right? So right now, the DMG is core, these are general. But we get into specific once we're looking at the Yawning Portal or the Curse of the Dragon Queen or whatever those others are. Those become the actual leaders, right?
Yeah, 100%.
But if players read understanding these things, DMs understood these things, it might actually put greater perspective on why the Curse of Lestrade is different than anything else you're going to run in D&D, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Go ahead. Next, what else you got there?
It's just small things. So, like restrictions on magic. It talks about little things that you don't ever see done. Like, hey, you're in an area where druid magic is predominant.
Right.
Okay. Well, my cleric of Lathander the Morning Lord goes to heal. Whoa, bitch! Don't bring that pagan shit in this place.
Yeah, that's right.
And it addresses that.
Yeah.
And you don't see it done. It's just like, we're just healing. We're making it easy on ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like...
Well, because you're not allowed to tell the players what they can do, what they can't do. You're not allowed to tell the players who they can be, who they can't be. You're not allowed to tell the players whether they're gender specific or gender... You know what I mean? You're not allowed...
Yeah.
And they're confusing players with characters.
100%, yes.
Quit confusing players with characters. Dude, everybody's welcome at my table. Every fucking body.
Yeah,
But we're playing in a world that says fucking cholerics are bad guys. Be careful. Strolling down the street with your fucking cross hanging around your neck. Tuck it the fuck in and keep your mouth shut.
Yeah. Right? It's little things
I'm
like
not
that.
picking on the player. I'm picking on the character. Because you are waving your cross around in a pagan village.
Right, yeah, and I'm going to have that reaction. And it's just like, I even talk about specific schools of magic, like Dragonlance would restrict schools of magic based to what robes you wore as a wizard.
Yeah.
And back in the day, and they don't do that anymore, but it talks about that, and it's like, hey, maybe this place, you're in a town, and it's like it's like in the Old West. Hey, you know that fucking magic missile you just shot off?
Yeah.
You need to come with us.
Yeah.
Right? That shit's not allowed here.
Yeah, that's
like,
right.
When we say peace not your weapons, we mean peace not all your weapons, and that includes your wizard over there. So bring him the fuck over here.
Yep.
And it talks about that. It talks about major cities, like, that would be so invested with magic, the teleportation circles would be common.
Right.
You know, in these, I'm like, oh my god, you know what? That does kind of make sense. And I know so we'll get it out of the way right now. I don't give a shit about people who are like, yeah, but in my version of D&D, I don't give a shit about that. I'm talking core concept.
We're talking about what Wizards of the Coast published for you fucking people to buy it and do a thing with it. Right. Yeah.
100%. Like Bringing Back the Dead. I honestly, and I may be ignorant because I didn't look at the spell for Raise Dead.
Right.
The soul doesn't have to come back.
Okay.
That's in the book. DMG says the spirit can choose to come back or not.
Dude.
It's not like an evil cleric can resurrect your fucking paladin to keep torturing them. The paladin's player gets the choice to saying, I don't come back.
There you go.
And it's in the book. I was
That's
like,
brilliant.
I've never read that before.
But you know what this does? When you read the book the way you're doing it, and we're discussing it this way, and you start looking at the bigger picture and the broader abstractions, how many amazing stories and how many amazing experiences can come out of this shit. That, right, is play to find out, which is something I always talk about. Rules is written, play to find out, right? But here's the ticket. If you're not using these restrictions, you can't experience the amazing stories that can come out of those restrictions.
Right, yeah.
Right? And I don't mean mechanical restrictions. I'm talking about like wearing certain robes. Well, you know what? You guys were robbed last night. Joe fell asleep in the inn, and they took your mage robes, and now you're walking around in traveler's garbs. You don't have your mage robes. It just makes the game, it just makes these events, although non-hostile, more interesting, right?
Yeah.
As there is a culture that we're dealing with.
Yeah, 100%. Right? And that's what a lot of this is a lot of this, I know it comes off as mechanical, but I'm like, it's not mechanical. This is just...
It's not mechanical until they actually give you a mechanical rule to apply it, right? Oh, by the way, if they're not wearing their mage robes, subtract 5 from their intimidation checks. Okay, now it's mechanical. Now we got a mechanical event, right?
And that makes the most sense for people because it's true. It's like you said, like, hey, you got mugged and you're missing your wizard robe. Well, I'm just going to go back to the School of Magic to get new ones. The fuck you are. Who are you? I was just here yesterday. And people are like, oh, that's
not they have an ID tag or something, right?
Right, yeah. It was like, do you know how many times how many people I work in the military, and our gate guards, do you know how many people they see in a day?
Oh, dude, thousands. Yeah.
In an hour.
Yeah.
Right? It's just like, so unless you're memorable because you talk or whatever, you're laughing, make them laugh, they're just waving, they're doing their jobs, and it's just like, they're not going to, blah, blah, I'm a wizard in the guild here. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, but there's where our role play comes from. You are, indeed? Yes. Really? Tell me about it.
Yeah, right?
Who are you? Yeah.
Right?
If you're a wizard in the guild here, where are your fucking robes?
Right, yeah. I don't. Where's your
pretty simple question.
Staff? Where's your familiar? It's just crazy shit. But it's stuff like that. It's just like, oh my god, man, they really did.
And the irony is, does it inspire you to want to play in GM? I think it does.
Oh, bro. So someone asked me a question like, well, what are you doing with all this? I'm like, oh, I set up a Foundry D&D 5th edition fucking because I want to run 5e.
Yeah, buddy.
I actually want to play 5e now.
Right. Well, and I would think when you're in the field, right? Because again, you were military, so if you're in the field and you're probably the only way you're going to play with guys, let's say on the ship or in the field, is going to be D&D 5th edition because that's what everybody plays.
100%.
So you almost need to embrace it just so you can keep your chops up, you know?
Yes. Yeah, and you know, yeah, and that's the thing. It was like it is what it is. Am I going to enjoy it? I don't know. Using some of what I learned, I think maybe if I was less obstinate about that, I know how the game is supposed to work. And I actually looked into this because I'm like, I keep looking down at the camera because I'm trying to go through like their NPC section on detailed NPCs. It's fucking brilliant.
Yep.
It really is. Especially in Foundry because these are all rollable tables that you could hit up in one small thing.
Yep.
It talks about henchmen and hirelings, an OSR feature. It talks about bringing them on board and making them useful. Loyalty, which back in the day we had, right? Retainers.
Oh, hell yes. Hell yes. Right? Yeah. Yep.
It's like,
I mean, when you think about it, 5th edition really did, and the DMG do a good job of hearkening back to those roots, right? Yeah. I just don't know if modern tables pay any attention to that.
No, it's quite clear because, like I said, I know people ask me like, "Well, how do you know this?" And you and I have both said this about the same time. How do I know what I tell you is true about? Because I listen to. Literally, I have downloaded them to be underway with when I'm fucking just need something to take my mind off shit.
Right.
Thousands of hours of actual plays.
Yeah.
And I can tell you what people are not fucking doing.
Yeah.
They are not using half the shit to their advantage.
Right.
They just go in and they say something and they talk in funny voices and think that's role playing, and it's not fucking role playing.
No, it isn't. No.
You know, they make dumb quips and shit, and you know, and that's part of that's a personal issue. Is I don't like silly. In a fantasy game when I'm running it, that's just not my thing.
Sure,
right. We're not playing tickle dick fight in a fucking game. You're not naming your character fucking jack me off.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Not gonna happen.
Yeah. That's beer and pretzel, and you'll tune into our games and we'll laugh and we'll be genuinely having a laugh, but it will not be a joke. It won't be beer and pretzel, so to speak.
Yeah, but, it's not this lowbrow humor or like this low hanging fruit bullshit. Yeah. It's like we used to do back in the day. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with laughing. But yeah, so loyalty scores, adventure NPCs, and they do the hirings, the extras. Those are just the people who just, villains. The villain scheme. You can generate your villain on the fly, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
Then they have the NPC character classes for your villains, which is the Cleric of Death and the Paladin Oathbreaker.
Right.
But when you hear those, it's like, oh, I'm playing a Paladin Oathbreaker, bitch. It's not meant for you. It's not meant for you. It's meant for the fucking something important to happen. Right. And then 3 months later, you meet this fucking villain that you thought you defeated, or an ally that you left behind because you thought they were dead, and now they're a Paladin Oathbreaker.
Right.
And their whole world is killing you.
Yeah. Yeah. They're on a vengeance tour for your ass.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, oh no, I don't need you to be the Paladin Oathbreaker. You're already a Paladin Oathbreaker 99% of the time.
Yeah.
You don't know how to fucking roleplay your character.
Yeah, that's the bingo, right?
We're not using piety.
Right. Well, and there is some serious truth in that. And you want to know why? Because the players don't want to be held accountable to their character. They want the freedom to have their cake and eat it too. They want this ability to say, I want to be pious when it suits me, but I want to be non-pious when it suits me, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's I want lazy player syndrome.
Yeah, basically, and then the whole thing, well, what my character would do.
Right.
No, it's not, because you don't know what your character would do, because
right.
you don't even read your bonds, flaws, and
Right.
oh god, the goals or whatever it is. I thought those were genius when I saw them.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, these are a great dungeon world type tool for players.
Yeah.
But people just ignore them and be like, your character is supposed to be like, lustful after anything valuable.
That's right.
And you don't give a fuck about this. The gem this guy's talking about, you haven't mentioned it once.
That's right.
Well, what should I do?
And you're not preoccupied by the pursuit of such things, although your
Right.
party is trying desperately to get your fucking attention, right?
Right, yeah. The best scene for all these hindrances and flaws and shit that you'll ever see is if you get a chance, it's on the movie's on YouTube. You might remember it from way back in the day, in the early Brigade days. There's a movie called The Gamers.
Oh, yeah,
Right? And
yeah.
Right, the live action, when they're
Yeah.
playing their characters. And they're coming to the scene in the river, and it gets quiet, and it's just them at the river. Their characters are kneeling at the river. And they all look back, and the wizard character is standing there looking around at the sky and shit. And then it goes back to the room where they're playing, and he's like, "What?" And the DM is like, "Aren't you forgetting about something?" And he's like what? Like your character is overriding fear of water? Oh, yeah. It's like...
Fucking
that was
shit.
like 2004.
Yeah.
Man.
Oh my god, I forgot about that. That's fucking.
I love that movie. My son loved that movie. And
Yeah.
he wasn't old. He was old enough to kind of understand it and
Right.
not really get it from it, but he loved the ideas of it and the
Oh
humor
my
and shit.
God.
He loved when I laughed and shit.
Oh,
but-
of course, yeah.
So, and here it's just really frustrating little things like here is. So D&D 5e. I'll ask you a trivia question because I also was like, I've never seen this done,
Okay.
and maybe I'm wrong.
Okay.
Okay, how would you detect a secret door as a character? Like just in general,
How
maybe
as a player or as a DM? How do I adjudicate that?
not as a DM, as a player. Like
As a
there's
player,
white wall-
when I'm in a situation where I'm a character, I actually so you've completed description of what we see, smell,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah, yeah.
My character then says, "Well, I'm gonna head over to the wall and I'm gonna begin the process of looking for any maybe knocking on the bricks to see if there's hollow spots." I'm actually going to describe how I'm investigating for something
Sure.
that's not obvious.
right
As a character, that's what I'm going to do.
Right. What's cool is when the term you use. So that's kind of how it is. The secret doors in 5e, by the book, not optional rule. Is there's two ways of doing it. The GM can look at the passive perception.
Right, which is
based
the
off
new. That's
wisdom.
new for versus what I
Yeah.
grew up with. Yep,
Right, which is I do like the passive skills because they can become very handy.
they're
to be
huge,
like,
and we did it all the
Yeah.
time. We would make wisdom checks as passive checks. When you
Yeah,
were a
and
kid,
we
we
would-
would call it a wisdom check, and they'd make a roll, and that was a
Yeah,
passive check. Yeah,
Right, and for me, I like it because it's like I've
Mm-hmm.
noticed a lot of players are just like, run to the dungeon, nothing can hurt us. And it's like, oh, bitch, I got your number.
And that's why they're mad when a trap kills them. Well, you should have been
Right,
fucking
yeah.
looking for traps.
Right, and so that's the thing is you can use a passive perception,
Right.
or you can use an active perception, which is what your character would have been doing.
Mm-hmm.
So then the DM says, hey, on that wall, yes, there is an airflow current at the bottom of these bricks and off to the one side.
Mm-hmm.
And then your character normally is going to be like, well, okay, I opened the secret door. Or like, and it's like, okay, well, you rolled your perception check, so you open the door. Actually, by the book, it says you need a successful investigation roll
Yeah.
using intelligence
Yeah.
to figure out what the mechanism
Yeah.
is comes next.
Right, because it isn't like it isn't like exactly. It's and this is
I've
why
never seen it done.
and this is why I've been screaming for 5 it's been 8 years. I've been screaming rules is written. Read your rules, follow your rules. You will have if you do this, folks, it's not to tell you how to play. It's so you find out what the experience is supposed to be.
Yes.
Then you can decide you don't like that experience and change it. But
Yeah.
most of you assholes,
100%.
not you personally, most of us dumbasses were playing the same game for decades. Different rules, same game, over and over and over and over.
150%.
Yeah.
So I'll be on, and I'm on it. And maybe I'm wrong, but I have never in thousands of hours
Yeah.
seen any game do this where it's like, oh, I find the door. Okay,
Yeah.
give me an investigation check
Nope.
to try and figure out how it opens. It's just, oh, the door's there, so now you open it.
Bingo. That's me. It's very
Yeah.
hand wavy, lazy. Oh, you found it. And what about finding it and you don't know how to get it open? Isn't
Right.
that some shit, right?
Right, because then a lot of people are like, well, why would you do that? Well, why would I do that? Is because you're going to have a fucking thief.
Yeah.
You're going to have a player who has min-maxed the way to fucking freedom.
Yep.
But they're only going to min-max it for fucking perception.
Right.
And they're not going to give a shit about investigation because they're like, well, investigation, that's from like in libraries and shit. No, bitch, that's not what the skill says.
That's
you
right.
should reread that part too.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, and that's how it catches it. And of course, you can always force a door open because you can break things.
That's right.
We'll get to that because that was also a very interesting thing of like, breaking things like armor and weapons are in the book.
Yep. Yeah. All the shit that this is what's fascinating to me because I love all of that simulationism, but I've never wanted it. I've never wanted to be told that this is something we have to do on every roll of the dice.
Yeah.
So I always resented simulation tools, but actually I want them because I want to see those things affect play.
Right,
but I resented how mechanically they were used.
Yeah. It makes sense.
Right? If that makes sense.
No,
so show me how we can have all of that, and it is easy to mechanically involve. Right? So I don't know. I can't recall what it says, but break that down for me. What does it say about breaking weapons and things?
Oh, let me go to let's get to that. Let's see. We'll get to that. Wilderness was next, but it talks about wilderness travel. People are like, it wasn't poorly done.
It does. Okay.
Or disagree. It does talk about it, and it doesn't do it like Forbidden Lands, where you're like taking, these things have to happen and stuff. But it addresses just movement on the map,
right? How
far you can go, travel, some of the features you can go, and it's just like,
right.
And it even tells you like, hey, when you're starting the mapping, think small.
Yeah.
It literally spells out, think small.
Yeah.
Think about 50 miles around
Yep.
is what you should plan out for dungeons and encounters and things.
Yep.
And then just let it the fuck go from there.
Yep.
And
this is the other problem I've actually talked to other peers in our hobby, and I've had guys complain they can't do the open world thing because they need to know, for instance, how the bread is made in the world. I'm like, dude, if you're worried about how they bake bread in the world, you're overwhelming yourself with meaningless details, right?
Yeah, shit's gone really wrong on
your that's right. That's right.
Like, I don't think that's what no one at the table gives a fuck about how long it
takes
to make elven fucking way.
And you want to know how we know that? Because you don't give a fuck how they make bread when you go to the grocery market and buy your bread. So why the fuck would you think your elf cares in the world how they get bread, right?
100%. It's just like, what if I want to make bread? Or I don't know, man. I don't know. There's probably the answer's probably in here for under some of the shit. Right. You talk about swimming, which I think is pretty common sense. So the traps section, I know you talked about. Well, we'll get to the breaking things. So traps was also very eye-opening. Mm-hmm. How do you get rid of magical traps? Indeed.
Well, first I think you have to detect they're there, right? And then
let's say you can detect they're there because you detect magic.
Well, I would assume you're going to have to probably utilize a skill similar to investigate, right? You're going to have to break it down.
But most people, and I will say I'm guilty of this, you are correct. You can use magical traps. Oh, where was it? It's detecting or disabling a trap. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to read this. So perception can be used to find the trap. Foiling traps. It was in here, but you can use detect magic as the most obvious way of detecting a magical trap. Any character can attempt an intelligence arcana check to detect or disarm a magic trap, in addition to other checks noted in the trap's description. Whereas the old standby is either you got to set the trap off, or the thief has to do it, or dispel magic.
Yeah,
I'm like, no, that. I mean,
well, and this was always my argument against skills. What happens when somebody in the party doesn't have it? So if everybody has Arcana, let them use it. Yeah.
Right. So everyone has intelligence. So D&D 5e is real smart because they'll say like you make an intelligence check, Arcana, meaning if you have proficiency in Arcana, you add the extra
get that bonus. Yep.
Yeah. So you go from a +2 for intelligence to a +4, and it's like some people are like, well, detecting a secret door and finding how to open it. Like if my thief can't figure out how to open it because they failed the intelligence check, well, odds are you have someone else in the party.
That's right.
It doesn't require a thief, a rogue, whatever.
Yeah.
To make these checks, you can point out and be like, and think of the role playing moments.
Oh, dude.
Of like, hey, what's wrong over there? And be like, oh no, I got this. And you're like, fuck, I don't have it.
Yeah.
So the wizard finally comes over and is like, hey, what's going on? Well, the door is kind of stuck. And like, you mean like this lever over here?
Yeah.
And
it happens all the time. Brother.
Every day in real life.
This is why you need second opinions from doctors, cowboy, because not every doctor nails their shit, man, right?
I have been corrected on shit that I am a noted subject matter expert on. It's just like...
Sometimes we miss it. Sometimes we miss it, bro. Yep.
It's like, what do I got to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, you just... Just change the fucking file name.
Yeah. And so this is why I tell people, critical thinking is oddly enough a lost art. When you read your rule books, you should read them, again, critically. And I'm not talking about you. I mean, one should read these books critically, and they should read these books as a whole. Everything builds upon everything else. Yeah. So you don't just roll up intelligence and it's just this thing there. It should, at some point, be referenced back in the rules to how intelligence is utilized mechanically, not just what it means to your character's stat sheet, right?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And just, dude, I don't know. Moving on. Downtime. There's an actual section on carousing.
Yeah.
In the fucking book.
Yeah.
And you roll, plus your level, and it tells you the one thing that I thought was revolutionary in Savage Worlds, which, to be fair, they did do it first, is like, hey, you're doing this, but you're also going to pay for it. It's going to cost you gold to do some of the shit you're up to.
Yep.
And, and then when we get to the skill check section that I thought was brilliant, that I didn't even know that was in the book.
Okay.
Because I really didn't read it. You don't even have to do, there's a few ways you can go with this, because in Savage Worlds, if you don't pass the roll, it doesn't mean you didn't expend something.
Right.
So in Savage Worlds, you take fatigue. You get your ass kicked a little bit for some of the stuff you're doing, so it's like a roughing it in a bar and shit.
Yeah.
And given how they wrote the skill check section,
right,
that's 100% applicable in 5e.
Yes, yes.
100%.
Genius. That's genius.
And carousing's not a fucking optional rule. It's actually in the book.
Yeah, and I think it should be. And this is what simulates your character's existence between live play to some degree.
100%. Right? Yeah, it talks about using renown and rights and sort of time in between adventures, because it's renown is a number, and it's just and you can see if people want to do it. They don't. They never read it, so they don't understand. Right. My renown is a 5. Okay, well, as a DM, I'd be like, what we're gonna do is anyone with less than 5 hit dice, they know who the fuck you are.
Yeah.
Right. Or they know they can perceive you, because when you recognize someone that's someone not to fuck with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not because you look scary and you're dressed in armor. It's the Old West. It's fantasy Old West Europe. Everyone has armors and magic and shit like that. But that renown can carry oh no, I know who that is. What? Don't look at them. Just don't look.
At them.
Exactly.
Shit
like that.
Exactly.
And people want to do that, but I'm you have an excuse and you have a way.
We so much wanted it to affect play that we built Dark Age of Man with prestige and repute.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
But we made it mechanical. You have to have prestige to do right. Same thing. Yeah. This is offering you that mechanical device, and I don't think anyone even is aware of it.
No, of course not. Because even what you guys have done is a genius. Because it's like you said, the king, or you guys are kind of. So Dark Age of Man to me is more Nordic and Viking-esque.
Yeah, it is.
I guess is how I perceive it. So your Jarl is gonna have I don't know, say a 10.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have a 2.
Yep.
You can still have a conversation and how you guys do it, but with 5th edition, you can still also do the conversation, but. The Jarl is going to be able to be well, who the fuck are you?
Yeah, well, you're nobody. You don't even get an audience with that guy.
Yeah, right, and you can let that color it. And if you do get an audience, I would let that difference.
Yeah.
I'd be you need to roll
right
really good fucking persuasion on this fucking.
Right. That's
talking to this guy.
So in our game, if you're 0 prestige, you're never going to sit with the king. You're never going to meet with him. You're a peasant. You are a fucking in the mud, dirty, stinky, filthy, worthless.
Right, yeah.
You can't even... You're not ever going to meet the king.
Get in your car and go to the White House right now.
Yeah. See how far you go, cowboy. Right.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
And even if you're a celebrity, you better make a phone call to your press man and your agent, and you better get him on the horn to work the magic so you can get in there to have dinner with Donald Trump,
100%.
Right? Even if you're an actor.
I've been to the White House twice, and I have been shook the fuck down. And once was fucking on mission fucking requirements, and the other time was as a visit. It was just because when you're in my field, you're
right.
Secret Service is I don't give a fuck who you think you are.
But I think it's genius. Renown is if you're going to play fantasy games, this is what boggles my mind, that D&D never really had it. In a way, D&D has it abstractly as level, right? And as the descriptor of your level. I'm a veteran, right? I'm a second level fighter veteran. It kind of gave you a sense, but nobody ever used it that way.
Of course not. Yeah, I think we misunderstood it. Or
but
we were just this seems dumb.
It strikes me in fantasy games in particular, something like Renown and piety.
Yeah,
piety, dude. It's so important to the whole culture, the whole genre, right? Of fantasy.
Yeah, 100%. Because it's okay, cool. What are you doing for the church?
Yeah. That's it.
Like, man, I don't like. Hold on, Father McKay. I know you like digging in ancient tunnels and shit, but
Yeah, what are you
doing for the church?
That's right. That's right. Are you paying every time you stop in at the local church? You better be dropping 10% of them gold pieces into a pot, cowboy. Right?
Everyone runs around like they went to seminary and shit, and now they're just like free agents. And like, they're not mercenary clerics.
It's like they've earned the right to be hedonistic, secular warriors, right?
It's fucking crazy. Oh my God. And again, it's just all these actual plays. I'm like, man, not a once have you guys actually ever made someone give a shit.
And they don't role play. And they don't ever hold their feet to an actual paradigm. So to me, gaming for me is a paradigm, right? We don't just agree on what we're going to play and the genre we're going to play and the rules we're going to use. There's this paradigm in which your character exists in a paradigm, and if you're going to function within that paradigm, there's going to be bonuses and there's going to be losses. There's going to be things you can and cannot do. And the rules are also going to demand how we find that secret passage and how we actually open that secret passage. Those are actual rules. Those are actual mechanics.
Yeah.
But the minute I sit down, especially in a campaign, there's a paradigm we're using, right? And hopefully as a GM, I'll either provide that to the players, either in session 0, they'll have a sense of who they are, what we're doing, or they'll get it as we play. We'll show or do, right, in session, and they'll hopefully start to pick that up. But the only way the paradigm is going to be recognized is when they're held for both sides of that coin, right?
Yeah,
you're going to be a cleric in more ways than one.
Yeah.
Or the gods aren't going to respond to you when you start your praying and your bullshit. Right?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is, because you already hear some people like, well, piety seems stupid. No, DCC gives you the example of why piety would matter in gaming. And when I played a cleric, I think it was 5th edition, but I irritate the shit out of people because I'm like, my cleric will be, say, neutral good. I'm like, okay, my cleric is neutral good. Like, I think that what we do is right for if our religion is good, but I'm not so sure about some, like, I don't need to enforce all of the church's edicts because I know not all of those come from the divine.
Right.
And that's how I play. Also, and I also don't need you running around like a fucking lunatic. And, I spread the word of Jesus. Fuck out.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because not all priests are zealots.
Right, that's the thing. It was like, but when I was playing him, it was like, we had a lawful evil fighter, and he was wounded, and I'm like, they're like, well, I need healing. I'm like, drink your potions.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have any potions. But like, okay, well, I'm not healing you.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's like, why aren't you healing me? I'm like, well, we're gonna have a conversation first about your fucking your morals and your fucking ethics. They're completely out of sync with civilization.
That's right.
And people get upset, but like, so DCC takes care of that because the closer you are in alignment, the more you can heal someone.
Yeah,
that's how piety in 5e would function for you.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah,
and that's the first thing I thought of. I was like, oh, there's my answer for my biggest complaints. Is like, my lawful good cleric heals the chaotic evil.
That's it. That's it.
No, but like, we're gonna use your piety, and we're gonna use that number somehow to be like, okay, so say your piety's a 5 and this motherfucker's piety is a 1 because he's in a fantasy world but still refuses the gods exist.
Right.
Cool. Now you're going to roll your hit points healed and it's going to be a negative fucking 4 to that roll because of the difference to what you heal, meaning you could heal none, and then the gods are going to have a conversation with you next time you pray.
Yeah, that's it.
But people, like you said, people don't want that.
Well, they don't. They really do want to just do whatever they can to win or to get advantage or to and again, if you're a role player, you're going to be fine with the GM. Matter of fact, I'll be honest, if I'm a player in a game and I'm role playing, and that's what I do. I first play character. I don't give a fuck about everything else until my character's done his thing, right? So I want a GM to hold me accountable to that shit. So Savage World says to me as a player, dude, you've got hindrances and you've got edges and you've got... So I'm thinking, shit, I'm going to play up to this because that's the fucking character I've agreed to play. If I don't like that, I'll make a different character, right? I hope the GM is paying attention to these role play things and they mechanically become valuable, right?
Yeah,
so when we talk about system matters, everything you're talking about, everything you're reading, this is system, not mechanics. System. From page 1 to page 321, that is the system. And if you take it as a whole, you begin to recognize that your experiences could be vastly superior to just the same shit sitting around a table doing the same kind of... and I hate to pick on Critical Role, but dude, I never see any of this shit in one of the top fucking shows, right?
Oh yeah, no, yeah. I mean, it's could and we talked about it, and I know you and I talked about it. Surprise people. Could we do this? Could we do what they do? You absolutely can.
Yep.
But that's not the GM's responsibility.
Right. That's right.
So people don't want to hear that. I'm like,
That's right.
It's not the one person's responsibility.
That's bingo. You're 100% right there. That's right.
You know.
Yeah. And they could do it. That's the irony. I would love to see them do what they do, but also do all of these other things, right?
Yeah, just use this stuff because it's crazy. Like, there's a section in here on running a fucking business.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
I was like, why does 5e have running a business? And it's like, oh yeah, D100 plus the number of days you've been open. Let's see what happens. I'm like, what?
I love it.
This is crazy.
It is crazy, but this fuels your drama. This fuels your role play. This fuels why you would even go out of the village and endanger your life, you know?
Yeah, 100%. 100% sowing rumors, training to gain levels, which should probably be done because it's not like I level up when I'm in fucking Herat.
Yeah.
I didn't level up. I didn't gain a level going from Kandahar to Herat.
No, all you gained was experience and you gained consciousness. But you have to go back and somehow apply all that to actually improve, right?
Yeah, I was like, let's talk about it, going after action reports.
Yeah.
Let's do some training.
Yeah.
What we learned from the last one.
Right.
Yeah, creating downtime activities. That's a whole section in here.
Wow.
Treasure. I'll pass that. Treasure is just... That is still eye-opening of how they do their magic items and attunement, and which I think attunement I've seen done very, very wrong a bunch of times.
Okay, tell me about that, because I'm not even certain I follow you on that. I don't know what that is.
Let me find the section on it. So in D&D 5e, there are certain magic items you can't just use. You have to actually sit and attune to it.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
See, I didn't know that. I totally
you gotta
missed that.
meditate on it. Yeah, where's this fucking section?
So that's similar to like Rune, what is it? Rune
Quest?
Rune Quest, you have to get aligned with the magic shards, right? To get that magic, if I remember
Basically,
right?
yeah. Yeah, so a lot of times I have seen... so some magic items require a creature to form a bond with it before their magical properties can be used.
Right.
The bond is called attunement, and certain items have a prerequisite for that, which you would assume.
Right.
Prerequisite can be a class. The creature must be a member of the class to attune the item. If the class is a spellcasting class, a monster qualifies if that monster has spell slots that uses the class's abilities.
Wow.
Right,
Sweet.
so without becoming attuned, the item that requires attunement, creature gains only its non-magical benefits. So, like a mace of disruption requires attunement, let's say.
Okay.
Which I'm not saying it does. I'm just for an example.
Yeah,
for anyone
example, sure.
Pissing. You can only use it as a mace, and maybe a +1 mace, but not the disruption part.
Gotcha.
But I've seen a lot of people do that. You have to make some kind of roll to attune. And in the D&D movie sort of did that too, and it was called out. It was like this elf is like having this vision quest, but it made it look like it was a skill check, but it's not. All it is a fucking rest, and all you do is focus on this stupid ass item.
Gotcha. You sleep with it. Sleep with it under your pillow for a night.
Focus can take the form of weapon practice for a weapon, meditation for a wondrous item, or some other appropriate activity.
Yeah.
It's a short rest. Short rest focused on only that item while being in physical contact with the item. This focus can take the form. And I was like, well, where's the skill check? What does it require?
Yeah, you just have to do it. You just have to commit yourself to it. That's interesting. Now, this is one of my issues with 5th edition, short rest, long rest. So one of my big issues with these kind of tools for players is it becomes about they moderate the game by saying we're going to do this, we're going to do that.
Yeah.
How do you adjudicate short and long rest, Scott?
Oh, so
do you let the players dictate that, or do you dictate that?
So I think it kind of works in both. So I'm trying to fast forward past all these magic items. There's 10,000 magic items. So I think it goes a half and half of like the players can, if they realize they're running like low hit points and low magic slots, and they're like, hey, we need to fucking take
Gotta camp.
At some point. We gotta do something. And it's just like, okay, because I won't tell them, hey, you can't do that, because I grew up old school. I'm like, oh, what are we doing? Oh, you're going to sleep in the dungeon?
Exactly.
Okay.
This is where short rest becomes a thorn in my side. It makes sense that you're resting. It makes sense that you're camping.
Yeah.
So short rest was always difficult for me to get my head around. Short rest always struck me as something the DM could preempt with wandering monsters and shit. Well, your short rest got interrupted.
You sure can, and they talk about that. Like, it shouldn't be a safe place. Like, if
there we go. Yeah, that's it.
And I think
but I see a lot of people just take short rests and they're just giving it hand waved away.
Yeah,
right?
of course, because no one wants to be like, well, I know you guys need these spells. No, fuck you. No one made you stay in this dungeon.
That's right.
I didn't make you go to the third level, and then
That's right.
This
ain't football. You don't get to go time out. I'm taking a knee. Time out.
Right. Yeah, you and I grew up being punished. It was like, are you taking this rest? Yeah, good fucking luck. Wandering monster time.
Well, I wouldn't even call it punished. You're in a live world.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're in a live world, cowboy. You better be aware of everything that you do and everything around you, right? Yeah.
You're in college. People were like, well, I don't understand the iron spikes. Oh, I do. So you get in the fucking dungeon, and your wizard and your fighter are exhausted and beat to death.
Right.
You put the fucking iron spikes under the fucking door, and you know the hammering is going to attract something.
Yep.
And then one of you stays on watch. The thief sets a fucking trap. That's the purpose of all the iron spikes.
Yep.
But no one, I don't think that gets done that way anymore.
No.
Like,
and it could. It's funny, when I first looked at 4E, when I first came back to gaming Pathfinder 4E, I always felt that all of that stuff was mechanized out of gaming, that it would all became a rule and a mechanization.
That's how it reads.
Which is ironic, because then it should make it actually part of the game. But then I would see these sessions or play in these sessions, and those things would never occur. And I thought, well, why even have them mechanized if you're not ever going to apply them? We would apply them without it being mechanized. Old school, you would say, "What are you doing with those spikes, dude? We're gonna block that door off we're gonna block both doors off in here so we can rest without interruption." There was no mechanized stuff for that, but they knew they had to have the tools to do that. And it struck me, in like other game systems, they start mechanizing that stuff. You need to have it. They actually define it, right?
Yeah.
But then they don't do it anyway. And that's what throws me off, right?
Yeah, and people don't, they generally don't think of this stuff. And it's mostly people who probably have never played anything but 5e or like Pathfinder or something.
Right.
Because the modules, and like you said, a lot of them will do modules. The modules don't really talk about it. Some do, but that gets
it's literal. If the party gets to the village and they fail to do this and this, they need to do a DC 12 rest check. It'll tell you fucking it'll walk you through the whole process, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just like, come on, man. But again, it's just, when I read that, I was like, oh man, I feel a lot of people do attunement wrong. That's weird.
Yeah.
I was like, attunement's really cool, and the rest to me are cool, but I also don't believe hit points equal boo-boos.
I don't either. To me, it's abstract. It's abstract as fuck. Yeah.
Like, I can't fucking do this anymore. And that last hit point is, okay, I'm fucking done, and you got me. That's the final.
Right. Have you ever watched UFC?
Right.
Yeah. Yes, they are physically taking a beating. But it's when they fail to catch the one that clocks them in the fucking chin, right? That puts them on their back, right?
Exactly. It's like when I ran Savage Worlds for you guys, when I run any game, I don't ever say like I do sometimes, but I won't always say, "Will the arrow get you in the legs?" I'm like, "No, bro, do you know how much that would fucking hurt?" Yeah. Be like, "No," but the arrow doing 3 points of damage to you could mean the arrow whizzed past you and it shook you to your core.
Oh hell yeah! Yeah, you heard it. You heard that shit. Right,
yeah, and more descriptions like that help out, and I think that would help people better utilize short.
Well, and that's why your videos where you break down Savage Worlds combat with those movie clips.
Yeah.
How it really makes sense of how Savage Worlds you would apply those mechanical things to what you're seeing in the fight, which is isn't always taking a wound, right?
Yeah, no, not at all. Like the bridge scene with Lancelot and Arthur.
Dude, it's amazing. Yeah.
Dumping hit points left and right, but just exhausted by the end.
It's right.
And then the final stuff comes.
That's it.
It's crazy. But yeah, man. And then some other magic items they talk about are other rewards. And I was like, what do you mean other rewards? There are no other rewards besides magic items.
Right.
And, a king giving you a pat on the back. Au contraire, supernatural gifts. Blessings.
Yeah.
A blessing is appropriate as a reward for something like restoring the most sacred shrine of a god, foiling an earth-shaking plot, helping a god's favor in completion of a quest. A paladin could receive a holy blessing before setting out on a quest, which you see a lot of, like, the priests gather you. Oh, okay, well, fucking read this section then when the priest is blessing you, because it actually says, hey, here's a blessing of health. Increase your con score, and you can even set time limits on these of how long they last.
Oh yeah.
Then there's charms. Minor supernatural gift can be given to you as a small charm that has what's the charm of animal conjuring? Charm allows you to cast conjure animal spell. Once used 3 times, charm vanishes. Or it's rendered useless. And it's all in the book. Marks of prestige.
Yeah.
And that's what we talk about.
See, and I've done all this. So as experienced GMs, I ran a campaign
Yep.
The king sent the dying king sent the three adventurers, and he gave his sight to one of the adventurers. He gave his he gave his speech to another one of the adventurers, and he gave his hearing to another. So they had to work together. One could see what others couldn't. One could see, one could speak any language, and then one could hear any language. But it forced the players to work together with these magical gifts the king gave them from himself as he lay dying, right? So he imbued them with these actual gifts, and they took them on this journey to do, But so that meant that Joe could understand any language spoken to him, right? But he couldn't speak it, so he'd have to then tell it to Steve, and Steve would then tell it. Right?
Man.
Right. So these are great ways to add magic or even effects that further create a dynamic, right?
Without doing the usual, because the usual thing people do is like, oh, what magic?
+2,
I can give you
+2
to
hit.
Right here, I can give you a +1 to your athletics. I can give you a potion of healing. Is that a blessing, I guess?
Right.
And it even says training can be considered as a special training is considered what are they? What's it fall under? It falls under marks of prestige.
Okay.
And it's like, hey, you can receive special training that does a couple of things, like you gain a feat at the end of the special training.
Wow.
You gain inspiration daily, regardless, for a random number of days. I'm like, holy fuck, epic boons, which I think a lot of players probably know about, but at 20th level, your character's supposed to gain like an epic boon.
Yeah.
As a possibility of like something so that only you can do.
Right. Wow.
And it's just like, okay. And let's
see, and the more you look at this, the more you dig into it, you realize how vast and deep it is. You realize 100%. How epic this can be if you take it all in, right?
Yeah, 100%. And then chapter 8 is getting into actually running the game.
Right.
Like that's how far we in before they even talk about like everything before this. There's 234 pages of, hey, here's some shit to think about.
Yeah.
About what it means to be in a D&D game and things that can go on.
And it should be in the players. I honestly believe 100%. This. D&D should have one rule book like Pathfinder, thick motherfucking rule book that's 500 pages long, and the players then would feel compelled to read the damn thing, right?
100%, right? Because you'll want to go through everything. Yeah. And you don't got to buy separate books. Yeah, they really do need to combine all this into one fucking book.
Yeah.
And like running the game starts off with table rules.
Yeah.
And I was like, table rules.
There you go.
Avoid distractions. Turn off the fucking television and video games. It actually says if you have young children, hire a babysitter.
There you go.
I was like, this is ballsy because they're going to get canceled for this section if they haven't already. Table talk. Set expectations about how players talk at the table, right in the goddamn book.
Yeah.
No mishmash. You don't need safety tools. You don't need any fucking thing. I'll just be like, hey, fucks.
Yeah.
Let's have a conversation real fast.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. And I wonder how many people play with strangers. You play with strangers more than I do.
I do, yeah.
And I consider you a pro because you have conducted yourself at conventions for strangers, and that makes you, in my opinion, a professional because you're not just running your homies. You're not just you're not just in the comfort zone running your homies all the time. You understand you and what you're doing, right?
Yeah, so and I've run games live on YouTube with thousands of views. If you see,
sure, yeah. And
when I go back and look at the number of people who have watched what I've done, I'm like, oh, my stomach hurts.
Yeah, and I consider myself an expert, but I've run games and offered campaigns for strangers, but I haven't run any convention games. Right, I drop into a fucking foreign place, plop down at the table with my books and shit, and then say, and then raise my flag of come over here and get your game on. So those are things that I have yet to experience. So I don't consider myself a pro, so to speak. But I consider, can we still learn and learn to reappreciate what we've taken for granted? I think we can, no matter how good we are, no matter how experienced we are. And it starts probably by reading, even Simbaroom. I made it clear. You read Simbaroom top to bottom, just the basic core book. It is loaded with shit that informs how you should be not only GMing, but how you should be playing without saying, this is a hard and fast rule. There are certain things implied in the core, just in the setting, that should 100%. That should be taken into account, right?
Yeah.
So when you add a DMG, which is really outlining Dungeons and Dragons, the game,
Yes.
I would expect it to be the first book everybody reads, but of course the player's handbook is the thing everybody buys. Right?
Of course, yeah, because I even remember back in the day, I think we got the monster manual first in AD&D.
I did,
1, right?
Because I was running Mold Bay with advanced D&D monsters.
Yeah, and my memory could be really old, but I need to check on this. But I'm 100% certain that the very first book published for AD&D 1 was the monster manual.
I think it was, yeah.
And like, well, what the fuck are we gonna do with this?
Right. Well, if you were me, you were using it in Holmes. You were using it in Basic.
And I think that was the intent of like, look, we're getting the books out as we can. And second edition did something similar where you had like the PHB first, but you didn't have any monsters. I'm like, all right, well, cool story, bro. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
But
even Pathfinder, when I first bought the core book for Pathfinder, I was shocked at a 400-page book with no monsters in it. I was like, what the fuck? I don't think there's any monsters in that core Pathfinder book, is there? The first edition. I mean, the 1E.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think you're right. I think it's all just how to run the game.
So you got this epic rule book with no monsters in it. And I thought, dude, that's kind of... It might have a few. It might have a few. But
it might, but I think it's probably by design because the last thing you want is... use my knowledge arcana in order to... does that thing have a weakness that I can discern? It's like, shut the fuck up. Put your fucking book away. So in this chapter, in the DMG 5, it talks about shit like that.
Yes.
Metagame thinking. Rules discussions. Rolling attacks and damage at the same time. How you roll as a DM.
Yeah.
Why is it better to roll out in the open? Why is it better to roll behind a screen for some things? It addresses all these things people talk about. And all these fucking people will get on YouTube and they're like, well, I'm going to pontificate about fucking rolls. I'm like, bitch, it's in the book. Just go ahead and read the book that you claim. Right.
But I think what YouTube's proved in many different hobbies is people prefer to be told by a so-called authority how to do a thing than to actually read it for themselves.
Yeah, right, yeah. It's like, what's easier? Someone just tells me how to do something.
Yeah, bingo.
We'll just call those people millennials and Gen Z. I'm not wrong. I could write all my battle plans and my secret plans in fucking cursive on a piece of paper, and Gen Z would never fucking understand what I'm intending.
And use a real map. And use an actual real map with topographic lines and shit on it, longitude, latitude, and they would never find the treasure, ever.
No, it'd be like, I don't understand.
But where's the GPS coordinates?
What are these letters? Was he a witch?
What is this, north? What is this, WNWE? What is that?
I don't understand. This map is triggering. Fucking stupid.
Oh, my God.
So we talk about difficulty checks, which is it has a list. Like the average is a moderate is 15, which everyone cries about being too hard. I'm like, you have 5,000 fucking bonus points you get as a D&D character.
Yeah.
Nothing at 15 should be a challenge, but not difficult for you.
Right.
But here's the section that it was. They talk about automatic successes. Mm-hmm. And this is interesting. So, and again, this is a variant, but these are under the things that I would be like, don't be fucking stupid and avoid this. So, let's say sometimes randomness of a d20 roll leads to ludicrous results. Let's say a door requires a successful DC 15 strength check to be battered down. A fighter with a strength of 20 might helplessly flail against the door because of a bad die rolls.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the rogue, with strength 10, rolls a natural 20 and knocks the door down from its hinges. We've all seen that, right?
Yeah.
And everyone bitches about it. No one knows how to adjudicate it because it's like, well, it's a game. Let's see. A character automatically succeeds on any ability check with a DC less than or equal to the relevant ability score minus 5. So if your fighter had a strength of 20, a 15 or fucking just automatically can get it open. And I'm like,
so they actually quantify how that's an automatic success.
Yes,
versus how you and I handle these things naturally, right? Because naturally you'd go, dude, what's your strength? 18. Fuck, you got it. Doors down.
You're taking it down. Yeah, this is easy. I'm not going to make you embarrass yourself.
But they're actually quantifying it. Yeah,
100%. And you read it, you're like, oh, you guys are fucking geniuses. You really are smart. You are really smart. You do this. And they talk about it, having proficiency with a skill or tool, and they do the same thing, like, hey, if that character's 11th level or higher and their check succeeds with the 15 or less automatically.
Yeah,
right?
bingo.
They kind of start splitting the difference. It's like, no, you don't need it. 11th level, you're probably beyond fucking picking a simple lock.
That's right, yeah.
Right. It's like, oh, I can do this.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine this is true in the real world, of a great thief, burglar who can pick locks. They don't suddenly struggle with bad locks, or shitty locks.
No, not yeah. You don't suddenly forget. Be like, oh
Yeah, they don't suddenly go, fuck, man, I can't.
Roll.
How do I open this bathroom door with a closing?
I got a 30% chance of failing every time. They'd be like, no, it's like when I was at the gun range with a buddy of mine,
right.
And I was walking him through because I teach people to shoot, and it's like, okay, here's, and I don't ever say like you're doing shit wrong. I'm like, here's some things to consider based on your stance, and try this and try that. And we were shooting. We were doing it, and I think he was getting irritated, got a little frustration. He's like, well, okay, well, let me see you shoot there, cowboy. And I'm like, okay, so I step up, and I'm just like, and pull back, and he was just like, holy, it was just like all eviscerating on the fucking face and shit. And he was like, huh. I was like, bro, I said, I do this for a living.
I was gonna say, what did you think? I was just, but I bet you do run into these guys all the time.
Oh yeah, the range experts. I'm like,
yeah.
Like, dude, I
awesome.
literally do this for a living. I'm not suddenly gonna not be able to hit a fucking target in fucking 15 yards with a fucking handgun.
Fuck no.
It's like,
God, that's crazy.
And then people, it's just crazy shit. But it's what you're saying is like,
yep.
Experts suddenly aren't gonna fucking fail. So there comes a point where it's like, oh, it's over the top. And then this is the downside, which is predictability. But that is not a downside because this obviates the usual bullshit of like, oh, I guess we just can't get the fucking door to the dungeon. I guess we're fucked.
Right. Yeah. See, I very often handle that. Like I did in Simba Room a couple of weeks ago. I said, given time, you'll get it. No, it was the those darkest places. I said, you guys can just take your time and you'll fix this. So he said, I'm taking my time. I said, okay. So all that means to me is I'm going to fill a few more turns here with potential
wandering monsters,
bad shit that can go down or occur while he takes his time to fix the conduit, right?
Yeah, 100%. Or team up and be like, okay, now your combined strength scores are enough to get past this. But there are people, though, that literally were like, oh, well, you remember this, especially back in the day. Well, I guess we're just stuck.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's
yeah. It's can we rest and do it again, or can we camp here and do it again tomorrow? It was always that, right?
Yeah. And I think this is an easier one because I have seen this or at least heard this in actual plays, but not a lot. But you do hear it. And I think it's because it's kind of like a no shitter.
Yeah.
Of like, hey, if 4 people are kicking a fucking door in,
they're gonna get it.
Although more than 2 people kicking a door in is even more than one.
Well, and I will generally, as a GM, if it's an actual obstacle to play, I'll make sure they recognize it as players. This you're not going to get through this door, cowboys, without something. I mean, I mean, you'll describe the door as such that this may be something special here, right? Before they even waste their time rolling 12 times.
100%. Yeah.
But I appreciate them trying to quantify this for players, for GMs.
Yeah. And did you know that existed in this book?
No, I didn't. Fuck no. No, I forgot.
It's like I had no idea. What's the shit they give? Like, it's not bennies. Inspiration.
Yeah.
They have a section inspiration, and I was like, okay, inspiration, right? You get to roll the dice. Well, okay, whatever. And it was like, variance option. Only players award inspiration. Well, hello, color me fucking curious.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yep.
And it is essentially what I have done before with Savage Worlds. Is like you let the players at the table nominate someone for so like, hey, Jason, that was fucking awesome. You get inspiration.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's not fair. You got to read the second sentence where it says, when they do that, the GM gains inspiration for his villains.
Yep.
And I'm like, that is something, if I run 5th edition, I will absolutely use. Just be like,
dude, I loved it in in the 5th edition campaign I ran. Same thing. I made it clear before session started, session 0. You guys award inspiration when you feel your partners have done some fucking inspirational shit. But remember, I get one too. And they loved it. Dude, they loved it. They had a negotiation with the captain of Baldur's Gate on the bridge and had this amazing role play. And they were inspired. I'm like, yeah, but I get one of those too, And it's great fun.
You have to balance the scales of fate have to be balanced.
Because players would just be saying, that's inspiring. They would just be doing it all the time. So
you spent it? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Man, but I didn't know that was even a thing that was potential because I've never fucking seen it done in any 5th edition actual play.
Yeah, I don't believe I've ever actually seen 5th edition run, really.
So most of the problem with Inspiration 5e is a lot of GMs, they will tell you straight out they just forget about it. And I'm like, well, it seems counterintuitive. And I'm like, but you don't play anything else.
That's why.
I play Savage Worlds, and it's like, oh, it's...
Yeah. I mean, These are actually things that have already been developed in other role playing games. So for you, that would be natural for you for bennies, right? These are bennies for you. So ubiquity, I think. What does ubiquity call it when somebody?
Shit, I can't remember.
So I had read and played Hollow Earth Expedition before I seen the 5e book. So it was like, oh yeah, this is what ubiquity does with. I can't remember what they call it in ubiquity, but so the point is, other games had already done a lot of this stuff, right? It's like they were just bringing it to the old. They were teaching the old dog new tricks with some of this stuff.
Yeah, it really is. And here is there is a section on. We finally come to the section where I was like, okay, I'm all in. I'm all in on this now. It's called Resolution and Consequences.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Fell forward.
So that is in D&D 5th edition, as fucking written, by the rules. Yep. Success at a cost, degrees of failure, and critical success or failure are all in the book, written down for you, not as options. It just says, hey, the DM, here's some things you should use. Yeah. If you fail by one or 2 points, go ahead and let him succeed, and it's like, hey, the character manages to get your sword past a hobgoblin, but then you're disarmed.
That's it.
It's essentially bringing the dungeon world shit into this, which I love, and I'm like, oh, fucking, son of bitches.
And for me, the biggest difference between the OSR D20 old school stuff we play and the modern D20 5th edition is fell forward or consequences. Yes. It changes the game, and it's the biggest fundamental change, in my opinion, to the D20.
Because D20 is so fucking boring as written. Yeah. As without this passage understanding.
And because
I swing and I miss.
That's right. And it will end, like you said, you pick a lock, you fail to pick the lock, what do we do now, guys?
Right, yeah.
No, you got the lock open, but you swing the door open, there's a fucking guard standing there.
Right, yeah. Or you're picking the lock, and like as the last tumbler clicks, you hear
right
behind you.
And now we're playing the D20 without pass fail, straight pass fail, which is sweet.
And other people who know me like, well, you're saying you need the book to tell you what to do. I need the book to tell me it's possible. That I don't have to fucking argue with dipshits at the table.
Yeah, that's it. This is about being able to say to players, dude, no, we're okay, we're cool here, right?
Yeah,
one of the reasons I was running basic fantasy. Basically, it's a narrative game, and I would have guys watch my live plays and say, "Dude, you're not running D&D." No, I'm running basic fantasy with all of these narrative-rich options, and they were great fun. But guys would get mad that I wasn't running 2 + 2 is always 4, right? It might be a 3, and it might be a 3 + 2, right? But that's D&D's basically saying, listen, let's loosen some of this boring ass pass-fail shit, right?
Yeah, and if you use half this shit, like, is it going to make people upset? Yes, because the first few times you see someone like that, and again, I'm used to it from Dungeon World, but it comes down to, like, hey, how bad is it? Is this important to you? Because I'm going to let you deal the damage, but I'm also going to deal damage back to you.
Yep.
Right, you're gonna take maybe a point or 2 of damage to represent that struggle and the stress.
Yep.
And then like degrees of failure. If sometimes a failed ability check is different consequences depending on how the degree of failure. For example, if you fail to disarm a trap and you fail by 5 or more, that means the trap probably goes off.
Yeah. Probably
right? Instead of like you can say, hey, that you fucked up so bad the trap goes off.
Yep.
Instead of like most time it's like, oh, well, you didn't read the DC.
That's it.
We don't know what happened. It's like here. It's like, what'd you roll? A 3. Fuck. Screw. I know some people do that, but they do it with any failure.
Well, they do it with pass-fail. Everything is pass-fail. Like save versus poison in old school. If you save, you live. Man. You fail, you die. Now, I can narrate it that you die slowly, painfully over 20 minutes. You have a few last words with your friends as you vomit up blood. I can make it interesting to hear, but the reality is it's pass-fail.
Yeah.
Well, what if save versus poison had pieces of success, right?
Yeah. Using this stuff, and again, it's just codified, and it's not a house rule. It's in the damn books. It's not a house rule. The critical success and failure is the usual shit that most of us do. Mm-hmm. It's interesting seeing them talk about it. Of like, hey, a roll of 1 picking locks. Yeah. It probably breaks the thieves tools. Now you don't have that tool. Right. And for D&D, that means you don't get the +2 bonus anymore for tools.
That's right.
So now you're picking locks without that fucking bonus. Right. And it's like, and if you roll a 20 on this intelligence check, you gain some extra information. Well.
Yep.
people like us already do that.
Yep, yeah,
The
1 in the 20. The fumble, critical success and fumbles, right? Yep.
Yeah, even though mathematically I disagree vehemently with it because
Yep.
it's the same, it's no different than any other number on the
It's
fucking
exactly
website.
right, which is unlike, which is one of the things I love about Savage Worlds. I'm a shitty-ass 1d4, but I have a 25% chance of blowing up that d4.
Right, yeah.
But I'm a
exactly,
1d12 badass master, but I only have an 8% chance to blow up that mastery. Well, that makes total sense. I'm going to be a master most of the time at what I do.
Yeah.
So it's not as easy for a master of something to actually go better. Like you're shooting. You're not, you're already a damn good shot. Maybe you'll put 6 of those rounds directly in the same hole, right?
Well, yeah. I'm not suddenly going to just miracle fucking bullets into
Right.
a single hole.
So what's really cool about Savage Worlds formula is you think, dude, I'm only a D4. Yeah, but dude, I'll blow that fucker up.
Yeah.
25% of the time, I'm going to blow that up. I'm going to actually kick that sucker up, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
So you may be worse, but you're going to have these moments of, wow, I overcame, even with a 1d6 or 1d4, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. They talk about tracking, and it actually is pretty solid advice, which I've never seen used. Like, randomly, it'd be like, oh, there's well, the worst is like, oh, I'm going to track in the snow. Well, let's see if you can make it, bitch, it's snow.
Yeah.
Have you ever walked in the fucking snow? It's a giant fucking trail.
Yeah. Well, when I do tracking checks in the snow as a DM, and they fail it, that's because it's snowing. I will then announce that it's snowing heavily.
Yeah.
And they're going to be able to track this, but they better get on the run. And at some point, it's going to be snowed over, right?
Right. Yeah, it's a good thing, and they talk about stuff like that in here, of like, hey, don't be stupid, don't make them roll if it's obvious where the tracks are, like moving through heavy mud, shit like that.
Right.
Resolving interactions was a real curious one because this digs into the heart of a whole different topic, that social skills in RPGs.
Yeah.
I think they're handled poorly by almost everybody because they're handled as a separate, inconsequential part of the game.
Right.
And it really breaks my heart because it says a lot how people, the attitude of people who die on the hill of hand wave social shit.
Yeah.
They do a disservice to they do a disservice to the game and to people making characters.
Right. Bingo.
But they talk about starting attitude, and they talk about changing the attitude of how you converse. So there's these multiple steps, but they don't talk about an actual skill roll at all until the very end.
Right.
So they actually discuss the role playing, and they talk about how you're going into it, the things you're talking about, and then they're like, hey, okay, and you can use like different skills, like, hey, and this is the part, like, you and I are talking with an NPC, and most of the time it's going to be, okay, Jason's going back and forth to the King's Guard, trying to gain entrance, the guards go back and forth, and then it's like, okay, Jason, give me a persuasion skill.
Yep.
Well, actually, in step 2, it says you can actually do insight checks in order to have your character or another person in the party kind of body language this way through and be like, hey, this guy's kind of fucking lazy. Shit like that. And I know I do it, but I'm guilty of asking the players to do it instead of the players being clever enough to be like, hey, I'm going to, like, what's this guy like?
Right.
You know? I was just shocked to see this, again, codified of like...
And it should be, because 90% of role play occurs... The GM's made up his mind who this guard is and what this guard's about.
Right.
Yeah. And the player will do whatever he says, whatever he does, ultimately is going to end in a die roll check anyway, so what the fuck's the point? So what happens when you empower the players? Because if we're looking at this from what the dice mean to the players, what does this rule mean to the players? The players say, dude, I'm not going to fuck around and guess with you whether I'm going to hit the right magic button and then make a single roll. But we're going to get insights, and those insights technically would draw down the difficulty of convincing the guard.
100%. Or conversely, it even says, hey, if you fail by 10 or more, you're fucking not just wrong, but you're dead fucking wrong.
Yeah, right.
And that's going to make shit real bad.
Right.
You know.
And that can remove some of that GM fiat, that sense that I'm debating with a GM who has no intention of letting me get past the guard.
Right, yeah,
which is a shitty feeling as a player when you're like, why am I bothering? Because you ain't going to let us fucking walk by this guard.
Right, yeah, we're just wasting fucking time. And it talks about the charisma check, which is the last thing. And the adventurers get to the point of their request, demand, or suggestion, right? The very final thing, or the conversation has run its course, call for a charisma check. Any character who participated can make the check.
Yeah.
So it's not just a one-on-one.
Right.
And you can use persuasion, deception, or intimidation can apply. You can aid the check where other characters white with the insight and stuff.
Yep.
All
of that would lower the DC for me. If you've made some insight checks that DC just keeps coming
right?
down. Yep.
And we'll talk about that because that's the interesting piece. And I think where I said earlier, they got the DCC or the 4th edition thing in here.
Yeah.
But to a limited degree. And they talk about multiple checks. It's like, hey, situations might have multiple checks involved. Like let's gauge this conversation. Where again, Social Combat, Savage Worlds, and other games, I did OSNR. The number of successes you get make it the conversation go up or down for you, and you're just removing social armor basically.
Yeah. Like combat. It's the same concept as abstract combat.
Idea.
Abstract dialogue.
Yeah. 100%. And so the conversation reaction has a DC number, which in D&D, I think people misunderstand when DC isn't always the number you need to get. And I wish the table had been labeled the skill check result instead of DC. But you roll the dice, and the DC goes from a friendly creature, indifferent creature, but it's a 0, 10, or 20. So that tells me, depending on what you roll, is what you're getting, right? So a 0 of DC of 0, the creature does what is asked without taking risks. If you roll a 10 or better, creature accepts minor risks or sacrifice to do what's asked. If a 20 or better, the creature accepts a significant risk or sacrifice to do as asked.
Yeah.
So the better you can, and again, it's not that it's important that people like you and I can do this, or it may be dumb, but it's that it's codified in a fucking book to tell you, like, hey, there's the core conceits of this game.
Yeah. See, and I'm old enough now and experienced enough now at 53 to say, dude, I can take all of my lifetime's experience. That's not going to go away. But if you codify this stuff, I don't feel like I'm GM fiat in a lot of this stuff, and the players will feel like I can apply all of my experience and my genius. But then there's a whole slew of support for the players and for me, so we aren't working so hard at this thing.
Right, and I'm also not just making shit up on the fly.
Bingo,
or anything, because it's like, okay, it does come down to sometimes being a game.
Yeah.
Of numbers and stuff, and it's just like, okay, well, that's a thing. But yeah, man, I don't know. Again, it was just real surprising to see all of that in there. Like, oh, these guys have actually thought this out.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are missing this completely especially on the skill stuff and the persuasion stuff. And then we move into the objects part, which was like, okay, like substance, like metal, paper, cloth, whatever, it has an armor class, and then it has hit points.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I kept reading, and I'm like, well, hold on. Like, so you're telling me that, and again, it's like, I think this is a fault of players to include dungeon masters. The evil paladin, Oathbreaker, has mithril plate mail on. Well, fuck, his armor class is ungodly. This is a hard one.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to use my warhammer that has a backpipe spike on it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to roll against his fucking mithril armor class, which is a 21.
Yeah.
But the intention is to deal damage to that armor.
Yeah, start tearing his fucking armor off.
Yeah, and it's like, it's in here, and I'm like, oh my god, dude, it's actually in this book. They talk about it.
Yeah.
But no one uses it. It's
no.
just like, I guess we just got to beat against him until we get enough hit points.
I hate it, yeah. And I love that. Now, see, I personally love the idea that you can slowly dismantle some armored fucker.
Right, and it's not even a high hit points, because people, you might think that it's like the armor. So D&D is not like in Savage Worlds. To hit is easy, to damage is difficult.
Yes.
And in D&D, to hit is difficult, to damage is easy.
Right.
So like Mithril has a 21 AC.
Yeah.
But still doable.
Yeah.
Right? You get in there and you're doing your things, and you come to the hit points. Okay, well, a Mithril breastplate with a small object is the size of a chest or a loot. I think a breastplate would be small is fair.
Yeah.
A resilient device has 10 hit points.
Nice.
That's it.
Yeah.
Fuck your whole day up by getting that 21 and hammer beating the dog piss out of your mithril breastplate.
That's right.
And it says 3d6, which in the 10 is the average, but I'm like, okay, go max. Give it 18 if it's mithril or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
Who cares? Yeah. But it's codified, but it's shit that you don't see done.
No, nobody uses that. And I guarantee you, if they even realize it, they'll give you some elaborate reason why they won't use it.
Oh, of course, there's 1,000 people. You and I both know as soon as, I would be like, hey,
I know it's there, but it sucks. I'm going to use it.
Right, yeah. I'm picking this breastplate apart with my fucking, my weapon that was, historically designed to impact armor.
Right.
I'm not
you use a hammer. Yeah, that's right. That's the reason you use a hammer, cowboy.
Yeah. This Bec de Corbin isn't because it's a fucking warhammer on a 10-foot
right.
staff.
That's it. That's exactly right.
Get you the fuck off that horse and go through your armor.
That's right.
You know, but a lot of GMs are gonna be like, "No, I'm not gonna allow that. You can't just destroy someone's
which is
armor
too
and
bad
weapons."
because then this is where I start visualizing epic battles.
Right.
Dude, you know?
Yeah, because the fighter's in there like, someone help me. The thief gets in there and is like, I don't need to backstab you.
Yeah.
I need to fucking fuck your armor up
Yeah.
and hit you in like the buckles and the straps.
Yeah, oh,
I'm gonna
dude,
give you your
beautiful.
backstab
Right,
damage,
right,
right?
right.
It's just like, but no. It's
We get to that fourth turn, and the GM talks about his breastplate sliding off down his legs as the thief has cut loose all of his buckles, right? And he's standing there now with what is it? The shoulder? What are those called? Spalled?
the pauldrons, yeah.
Yeah, right. That's all he's got left, and he's with his sword, and go at it, cowboy.
You break the sword with your fucking fighter.
Yeah.
Like, I'm taking his blade away from him. You know, and it's like, this is where I have trouble with D&D in general,
Yeah.
because I play like that.
Yeah, that's how I want to play. I want people to be creative. I want them to think about this shit. But then if there isn't a mechanical way of making it legit, right, it deters them from even bothering to think creatively.
It's crazy. That's why I like seeing them. Like, oh, this is already handled for you in the book. They already tell you.
So let me ask you, with all of this, now, does this change your view of D20, or just broaden your view of 5th edition D&D in general? Or does this actually make you more... Does it make the D20 more palatable to you now? Because I know you've pretty much have given up on the D20, right?
Yeah. I don't know. Like, there's still a few things about D20 that I don't like.
Sure.
But yeah, I think this is an eye-opening... This has at least given me enough pause to say I want to run like a single adventure campaign, to get in there and over a couple of sessions and say, let's see how this handles.
Yeah.
And see, it bogs down.
Part of the thing about like for instance, whether we're talking about 5th edition D&D with the DM's guides information, or we're talking about 2D20 Conan, or we're talking about Savage Worlds, Task Force Raven, no matter what we're talking about. But we'll stick to this example through the DMG 5th edition. The DM can be enlightened to all of this and come to the table in every campaign enlightened to all of this. And if the players haven't read it, they're not enlightened to all of this. So they're never going to reach out and grab for those things. Yeah. No. And the GM is going to ultimately be playing whatever the players put in front of them, right? Now, the GM can institute some of these things because it's the rules.
Absolutely.
This is why I say it's so paramount we find the players that know it as well as the GMs. When you play Savage Worlds with players that know Savage Worlds as well as you, what kind of games do you get? Fucking transcendental, epic shit, right?
Yeah, because they know the rules enough to not be bogged down by like wondering shit. Yeah.
So I say that's awesome, but boy, you want those players to come to the table knowing everything you know, right? I think a lot of GMs don't want players to know what they know. Right. And I'm just the opposite. Dude, I want you to know as much about this shit as me.
Yeah, we're not in competition. So I say this. And for a game like this, the reason I would run D&D, I want to run this, and I don't really have... I'm probably running out a lot of time to run games now. But these will be implemented by me if I ran the game against the players in order to... Because I think you have to learn by example sometimes.
Yeah.
And when I start disarming you and crushing your fucking armor... Right? Or like... Hey, you're out in the town doing stuff. We're not going to role play you wanting to fuck the bartender, but I need you to give me a roll real fast.
That's right.
Let me narrate your evening for you.
Yep.
And stuff like that. Yeah, because he talks about handling mobs.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that there's a certain number of creatures can automatically deal damage to a character.
Yep.
In D&D 5e. I did not know that. I thought they still had to roll to attack, but it's like, no.
Yeah.
If they need to get a 15 or better, here's how you need 4 of them, and they automatically deal damage.
Yeah, because they're overwhelming you.
Yeah, basically.
Makes sense.
It's fucking crazy. They talk about chases, which I always thought D&D's chases were really interesting. The 5th edition, they did do a fun thing with chases. And I think they use hero points, which are perfect. Like, that's basically banning. They get that from 3rd edition, which got it from, actually, I think Eberron did it first.
Okay, I'm not familiar with Eberron. The rules, anyway.
Yeah, they basically just get points you can add into roll.
Okay.
You add a d6 to a roll.
Sure.
And you get so many per level. But the one thing that I will use, and this is like one of those things, like I don't like static math at a table for players. I don't want you to go, I know if I attack with this or use this skill, I automatically always have this.
Yeah.
So I always get in fights about this with people who don't do it. I like the proficiency die system
Yep.
out of the DMG.
Yep.
I love it to death.
Yep.
Because I want you to be fearful of rolling a 1
Yep.
or overjoyed when you roll a
Yep.
4 and you're like, I just got a +4 to this fucking roll.
Yep.
And
The absolute
players-
worst thing about the D20 is everything is static. If you're
and
not
that's why I
using
don't-
variable dice. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I don't like the system. I think is the biggest thing is like, oh, there's a 5% chance for everything to happen.
And they know every
Fuck
single
off.
time they roll to hit melee with their sword, they know they're adding +4 every single time, and it never changes.
Yeah, and people are like, oh, it slows the game down. It slows the game down for you to roll a fucking 4-sider alongside the other one. No, it doesn't. You just. But I have been fought and argued with about proficiency die at a high degree. I mean, I even wrote it into the first game I wrote. I was like, no, this is you roll a fucking proficiency die.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just things.
And
like
that's
that.
Blood and
Hero
Bone.
points are a
I
good
mean,
idea.
one of my all-time favorite games, D20, Blood and Bone. You roll that proficiency skill die with everything you do, and it's swingy, but it's more realistic. Sometimes you get them by the fucking throat. Sometimes you only get one hand on their fucking throat.
Yep, 100%.
So-
Absolutely, man. It's just why do you want everything so static? I don't get it. That's the thing about I don't like the initiative in D&D. I don't like static initiative. I think it's very fucking boring.
Right.
But
Now, when I ran my 5th edition, I used the cards from Savage Worlds for.
Yeah.
So when I ran my 5th edition table, we used playing cards for, and they loved it.
Nice.
They fucking loved it. So
it's
I stole that
dynamic.
directly from Savage Worlds. Yeah.
It's fun. It's dynamic and fun. No one wants to be like, oh, I rolled fucking 3. I guess I'm fucked for the next 5 hours. And it's just like, no, man, no, we're not gonna do that. I don't know what else I would. I guess honor. It depends on what you're playing. Fear, of course. Healing was an interesting one because it's like, hey, there's an optional rule for healing where it says, hey, unless you have like a kit, you can't heal. You can only use natural healing.
Now that I like. I actually like the tools that are available in the fucking player's guide to mean something. You need to spend your gold on shit, right?
Right, yeah, let's make it matter. So buy that healing kit.
Yep.
Or, I hope your cleric is the same alignment as you.
Right, bingo, yeah.
It's just crazy they have rest variants for talking about, the things you like gritty realism. They also have the injuries table, so it's like you want to go a little more gritty, you can deal injuries to players when they when they hit that threshold of 0 hit points. It's not you just don't get back up. You're like, you get back up now, you got a fucking limp for a while.
Nice.
And it's like
I
there's
forgot
ways
that's in there. That's brilliant.
Right, yeah. There's ways of doing it. You can use side initiative, so it's you guys roll and I roll. There's just using a passive initiative score, so it's your initiative is 10 plus dex modifier, and that's what your initiative is forever. I'm like, that's not too bad, and I can see how that might be able to shift up a little bit depending on what's going on.
Right.
But then they go to some dumb shit from old school D&D, like speed factor.
Oh god, yeah. And see, and that's in Simbaroom, it's the highest quickness goes first.
Yeah, right.
And in Barbarians and Basilisk, whoever's playing the Barbarian class always goes first, unless there's another Barbarian, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And that's because the Barbarian is the king of the fucking movie that we're in.
Right, that's what you're supposed to be doing,
right.
ICRPG, Dungeon World, all use the round robin initiative.
Yeah.
Which, it's a board game style. I mean, we're all used to it.
And in Dark Age of Man, we literally say, whoever goes first is whoever goes first. So if you say as your character, I'm tired of this guy lipping off at me, I'm going to take 3 steps across the river and smack the shit out of him. Well, you go first.
Yeah, and that you start, and that's the thing is you don't ever, and that they do address some of that is like if a player says I attack this, don't be like, oh, I guess we're going to initiative.
Yeah, right. It's so dumb.
Let him get the attack out. Yeah, it's so dumb because now you're like, oh, you were going to attack, but I rolled higher than you, so now you're not.
Right. And suddenly this guy knew you were going to stab you with your dagger. Right? Fuck. How did that happen? Right.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Like shoving characters aside to get things out of the way. You can force targets aside, tumbling through people. All this shit is in here.
Yep.
And it's not part of skills. It's just things that every player can do. Cleaving through creatures.
Yep.
There's the injury section. Morale is actually in here, which people bitched about. Because I remember when 5th edition got into a fight with fucking OSR recently about morale checks and how they're dumb, not dumb. And I'm like, well, they're in the game.
Now, I've always used morale, but generally with creatures that would have self-preservation. But it seems when I'm playing and they wade through 15 goblins in the first 3 rounds and there's 20, those other 5 are gone. I ain't making no roll. Those other 5 goblins are fuck off. I'm out of here, right?
Right, yeah, you're gonna flee. Yeah,
I'm not gonna fucking roll for them. They're going.
No, it's fucking crazy. It's all in here, man. Starting area for dungeons. Yeah. What else? I think we're winding down.
It's awesome.
After that is just that's kind of it. Like I said, it's like when you start reading the book, it's like Oh man, I've never actually run 5th edition.
Yeah.
Not
And
not
I
what
would say I haven't really played 5th edition with even if I read the DMG and I was attempting to, you can only go as far as your players, and almost everybody at that table I ran, I had five at that local table, 4 of them were noobs, had never played before, so I agreed I would run them through a campaign so they would learn, and then I gifted everything to them. And I launched them on their careers, hopefully, of role playing, and of course that meant giving them 5th edition stuff, which I would have at the time said, I wish people would choose something else, but I knew it was the most popular thing in the world.
Of course.
So that was very much beginner level stuff. You know, there were people I'd have to tell 5 times. No, you're rolling melee again. Roll your D. You know, you'd have to tell them 5 times, but by the second session, they at least remembered they rolled it. Yeah. So there was a lot left on the table in what 5th edition could have been with experienced players, right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I've never done it justice.
Well, the same with 4th edition. You and I both had this realization, I think, in the last few months. Fuck, we missed the point. We actually missed the point.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
I regret it. I regret every time I look at my book, 4th edition books, I'm like, fuck, I'd love to run the game.
Yes. How the fuck did I miss this? How did I not get it, right? And I talked about Index Card RPG, in a way, teaching me that. Yes. Because in a way, by stripping out all the stuff I was hung up on, I realized, wait a second, this is, he just basically said, let's just make 4th edition in many ways, right? And ICRPG is a brilliant piece of work, right? We've talked about that before. But Blood and Bone was the first modern D20 game with some of these features that I ran. That I had an extra level of transcendental experience as a GM that I had never had with D&D traditional D20 formula. So Blood and Bone had enough in it that. And I had not seen Index Card RPG prior to that. So there was stuff that made that remarkable experience that I probably would have had with ICRPG or even 4th edition had I been thinking differently about it when I discovered it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
so I don't think they'd made the wrong... And I think Jared in the Discord group said it best. They probably should have called 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons something else. And it might have been received better by players.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, it's just... And I get it, because it doesn't feel like D&D, because people run it wrong. And I realize that too late. It's like, you just run this wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And this is why I talk about, system matters, rules is written, game design intent. Now, there are plenty of people who just write fucking rules and they don't even think about the consequences of what that's going to do, and a lot of them do, obviously. Yep. That's why I said when you see guys come out and they just cherry pick their favorite rules because those rules work for them, but have they thought about the consequences of those intentions, right?
Yeah.
So,
right, yeah.
And then there's player intention. Every player comes to the table with a different idea of what he wants to achieve or she wants to achieve in fun or joy or whatever the heck it is.
Yep.
That you can't really control that, right? But
no.
But games, generally, if they're well thought out, designed, and developed, they're going to have an intent to them. And I think if you bother to try it, you're going to have that experience, for good or ill. For some games aren't worth having a second experience.
No, that's very true.
Right?
Yeah, and like the 4th edition thing, the biggest thing is like, every character class has magic powers. No, they don't. We were fucking stupid, and we couldn't fucking get beyond our own irritation.
Yeah.
Because like, it says my fighter pulls an enemy 3 squares. Yeah. Feel free to fucking narrate how that happened.
Yeah.
You're talking a lot of shit. You're you're swishing in the air, and the guy fucking moves towards you.
Yep.
Just on instinct.
Yeah.
Congratulations, you used your fucking power.
That's it.
But we didn't do that. Everyone played it like it was a fucking tactical minis game.
Yep, like it was a fucking board game. Yeah, it's exactly right. Yeah. Instead of saying, dude, this is gonna happen. How the fuck does it happen? What does it look like, man? Tell me this story.
Yep. 4th edition may have been the most narrative version of complexity that they could have come up with.
Tell me, brother, how does it look when you kick that motherfucker 5 feet back? Oh, I don't kick that motherfucker 5 feet back. Right? I do this. And you're like, oh shit. That's
Yeah, everyone was concentrated on the fucking cards that you use in the game, and it's like, no, that was our mistake.
Yeah.
That was, because I did it. I played a Genasi sword dancer.
Yeah.
Sword mage. And I was like, oh, I get the lightning power that affects this many targets. Instead of thinking like, oh, what's my genasi doing? I'm a sword mage. Oh, I'm in the fucking middle of combat and fucking flourish up and fucking lightning is rubbing down from the fucking sky as I'm going through these guys and shit. And it's just like, yeah, but you look at how 4th edition gets played and it's like, we did it to ourselves.
We did. Now, and I ran some 4th edition in the Dragon Age world setting, and I had a blast.
Yeah, it's a good system.
But again, I stayed under level 4 and 5, so I never saw that power bloat that for me is a GM. So my biggest issue with high level gaming is that's just more shit administratively I have to worry about.
Yeah.
So that's my personal thing. I don't like dealing with all that administrative stuff. Yeah, and I personally like more grounded fantasy. So I don't like getting into godlike stuff, right? That's superhero stuff, and I don't mind superheroes, but I'd rather just play a superhero game where those things are assumed already. But my biggest issue with most of those obstacles at high level is it's just more and more stuff I've got to track or I got to keep track of. So,
I don't need to fight Orcus for you. It's fucking 20th level with 700 hit points. Right. I don't need to do that.
Yeah, and I don't want to do the math. Just the math of that. It's like, really? Are we doing this? Are we really doing this?
No, it hurts my heart. Yeah, no, it's like I can give you Orcus at like 6th level.
Yeah, that's it.
Make it matter to you.
It matters when you are when you're a peon. Not a peon. When you make it relative, it's still Orcus. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah,
and I think that's crazy. Part of what ICRPG taught me.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, there's a few things that that system I'm doing a little bit different, but really it's just one fucking aspect of it that I think they missed out on, but it was probably because of limited introduction to other game systems.
Right.
So and that was it. Yeah. But
brilliant.
It's only the one. Brilliant. It's a really good game. It plays so fast. I tell people it's probably the better version of D&D that you'll ever play.
Yeah.
We play the fantasy side, but I'm running that cyberpunk game.
Yeah.
And if you just look at the effort dice and how they work, I'm like, oh, there's a clear way of, because I still think this hearts can be a slog, right?
Yeah.
I was like, but there's an easy way around that. And you can see where it would work, and he wasn't aware of how other games function, or maybe wasn't cognizant when doing it, and so it's fucking an easy fix to be like,
it is.
No, guns are gonna be really lethal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn straight.
When you get stabbed, it's going to be fucking lethal. Yeah. Potentially.
Yeah. Right? And you can do that. Easy tweak. And ICRPG makes no bones about it. This is all about tweaking it to suit.
100%. Yeah. They say you're off the bat. Yeah. It's your game. Go fucking do whatever you want with it. You can't break it.
Brilliant conversation, my friend.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Listen, tell everybody where they can find you, because you're also running. Now, you said you were running Friday Night Live.
I was running Friday night.
Okay.
Yeah, I was running that, but I ended the first adventure. I was running the Mummy's Mask for the G&G tabletop, but since I'm transferring soon to my ship, so I stopped that just because I'm spending more time with my wife, even though we just sat and talked for a couple hours.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. Tell her thank you. Thank her.
She's good.
From a fellow gamer, thank her for me.
She's out in her garden and stuff, and so I'm not just standing around looking like a non-gardener.
Right.
But so I used to run that, but you can go back and look at the first 8 videos I did. So it's a G&G tabletop.
Yeah, that's what I wanted. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's the Mummy's Mask, and like I said, it's when you realize you've done. It's the moment of arrogance, a little bit of like, you go and read comments and you're like, oh, I really do have my shit together.
Sure you do, man. Of course you do, brother.
Because but the interesting piece is, and I highlight it for people, is like, most of the comments are usually along the lines of, I've never seen GMing styles like this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, because you watch Dungeons and Dragons.
Right. So. That's it. Yep. And the people they're playing with locally.
Yeah, I mean, they're the same vanilla people who aren't reading the books, right? And don't give a shit about renown or piety or fucking failing forward in my D&D.
And they've still got a chip on their shoulder that it's their game, and you're not going to beat my Castle Ravenloft,
You're not taking my sword away from me. Why not? You did the damage. You have other weapons on your character sheet. Use them. That doesn't do as much damage. Oh, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know why the fuck you took them then. Yeah, so there's that. Role playing as smart people is our podcast. Yep. Also, I'm winding up my role on that again because I'm gonna be out to sea. And then Savage Cheerleader on YouTube. Although I don't do much on there. We have our Dragonlance. We ran Dragonlance for Savage Worlds. I didn't put the last few episodes up because that was when I had my breaking point with Savage Worlds running that game, and I realized I was done with complex systems. Altogether, I'm fucking done.
Yep.
So that's
guess what? Join the club, man. Because Dell and I 3 years ago said, "Why are we doing all this shit? I just need enough rules and dice so we know what's going on."
Yep.
Right.
Yep. So despite the back of me. I'm keeping all my Savage World shit, but I am done with it. We talked about before we get started. Now,
well, hopefully before you ship out, you'll have a chance to run Dark Age of Man, for us. That would be awesome.
I do owe you guys a quick game, and we're trying to game every Wednesday night, just for the Discord guys. We have a small group.
Sure.
We're trying to try out new systems and stuff to go before I get out of here. I'm like, oh shoot.
Well, I'm looking forward to all your future work too, man, because I have OSR and I have Task Force Raven. I want to thank you live here for sending me that book signed. Dude, I didn't even know it was signed. I got it in the mail, showed it off in that video, I hadn't opened it up, and then I got the video done, and I go out to talk to my wife, plop down on the couch, and I open it up, and it's signed. I'm like, fuck, dude, he signed it. I didn't even notice it. It was great, man, and it's always a pleasure. I'm proud. I appreciate you, my friend. Everything you do for our hobby and what you do for our country is serving.
My pleasure.
And it's always a pleasure to chat with you, Scott.
Absolutely, dude. Yeah, I love chatting with you, bro.
And I don't mind disagreement, and because we're always respectful. We rarely disagree. You and I come from a similar take on this thing, right?
Yeah.
But even if we did, dude, you know what it's like when you have good friends. You can throw punches and shit. You'll be okay in 5 minutes.
100%. Yeah, you're like, well, that was dumb.
It's like, get over it, man. What are you offended by, dude? You loosened my tooth. All right, we're cool. Let's go get some pizza.
Right, no big deal.
It's not life or death, bro. No, thank you, my friend. Awesome.
All right, bro.
Anything else you want to put in here before we kill this?
No, man, that's it. Read the books and play my chord.
Yes, that, you know what? I would say what Scott just said there, that's true of every fucking game you get your hands on. Read the goddamn rules. Attempt to run the rules right first.
Yes. Yeah. Just because you game for a long time doesn't mean you know what the hell that book
Most
does.
likely, because you've gamed for a long time, you don't know shit because you've applied the same shit to every game you've ever run.
100%. I love when Shauner says that. I've been running games for 30 years. You've been doing shit wrong for 30 years. I agree with him. It's true.
It is true.
Of that trap. Yeah.
It's like, you got a new game? Still running the same old shit? Okay.
Wow.
I tend to be that way, right? I tend to we can't help how we approach what we know, but we can endeavor to try to change, right?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, man.
All right, brother. Go enjoy the time with your wife, my friend.
All right, dude. Later.
Late.